Okay, here we go. We are live. Hi, welcome. This is episode number 2 of the Utah Housing Market Update. I'm Ty, the real estate guy, and that's Jeff Morgan. Jeff's going to break down how the newest data affects your ability to qualify for and purchase a home. And at the end of this video, we're going to kind of talk about home prices and what they've done. Home prices are way down. We've seen a massive correction. This is your active listings. Currently, we're at 7,049 total active listings. That's down by more than 500 from last week. So we're losing available inventory for people to buy. Active number of listings is currently at 1918. We're only halfway through the month. So that's why that number is in red and it's starred there. So most likely we're gonna get, I would say, more than double that for new listings. We're coming into the selling season. So that we should get more and more listings as time goes. Also, with the lower home prices and lower mortgage rates, we've got a lot of new buyers also entering the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe help to that inventory issue that we've had for so long, you know?
Right.
More listings. It's a good thing for the state.
We're going to talk about what's sold so far. In February, we have 1,043 sold right now.
But we're halfway through the month, right? So
once again,
I mean, that's going to be, you know,
more than 2,000
compared to the prior year at 2,962 units, right? Which obviously we know what 22 was like. From the mortgage perspective, it was just a spike up in rates. So any of those contracts that closed in February of last year, 2022, were more than likely at the end of, you know, the awesome rate cycle, right?
Right.
But still, 1,000 units compared to the prior, I mean, that's down. We're down.
Right.
Total sales down, no doubt about it.
But
about
we
a third.
should beat January's numbers.
Yeah.
So
I would say that's right. Yeah.
But once again, we're coming into the normal selling season. So even in a bad market, generally you're going to sell more in February than you did in January, and March, and kind of going on. Up by 300%, by more than 300% on listings. So that's a lot of inventory compared to last year. But last year we had a problem.
Yeah.
Last year we didn't have enough, and that's why we're having bidding wars and people.
Which goes back to that number, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the actual sales. And we had that bidding war madness, and it was being curtailed, right? Like
right.
It's funny to look at history. We go back in time to try to make a statistical, I want to say guess, but we're going to use data to determine what the market's going to do. You know, up 300%. I think that shows that people are feeling more than likely that if they're ready to sell, selling now means they maintain the highest amount of equity or close to, and they're trying to get off the fence if they're ready to sell. So that active listing number, I mean, I think that says something.
You and I, we're in the trenches,
Right.
talking to people every single day. We're out in the market. We're hearing about this happened to this agent, this happened to that agent. We got multiple offers happening at multiple times this week. I had a client want to see 6 homes. This was on a Thursday, and we were going to go look on a Monday. And by the time Monday came, 2 of those homes had sold.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We went to look at houses actually on Tuesday, and 2 more of the homes had sold. So 4 of the 6 homes had sold before we could even get out to look at them. One of those was a multiple offer situation.
Right.
The agent's like, hey, do you want to get your offer in too? And I'm like, nah. And the guy's not really wanting to, you know, compete.
Right.
You know, he's not wanting to fight for a house. But, you know, that option's out there for sellers. Personally, what I would do if I want to sell my house, I would probably list it a little high and let the market come to you.
Absolutely.
As opposed to like trying to undercut the market. But there is also an advantage right now if you need to sell and also buy. And in that scenario, you might want to list a little low, sell it quick, and then go right now while you can still negotiate a great deal.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there are sellers out there. Matter of fact, a lot of homes are still on the market 80 days. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing a ton of that. You know, it seems like almost every home I look at is in the market kind of 40 days to 80, 90 90 days.
That would get to that absorption rate.
Right.
Start to talk about like how much inventory is available, how long it's taking for those homes to sell. And you're right, it is taking longer. I would say part of that is to do with the season, and part of that is to do with interest rates being so volatile up and down, and you know, people not completely understanding whether or not they can purchase, whether they have the ability to.
Right, so. And that's kind of my recommendation right now is go talk to a lender right now and see how much home you can qualify for tomorrow.
Totally, yeah.
Tomorrow.
That should be the first step, absolutely.
We just had a little spike in mortgage rates. We're going to talk more about that in just a minute.
Yeah.
But go out and see how much you can qualify for today, and if home prices continue to trend downward, and mortgage rates continue to trend downward,
Yeah.
you'll be able to qualify for more than what your approval says.
Right.
And that's what you want, right? You want to be in a comfortable situation. And when you get your loan approval, if you're not comfortable yet, then at least you kind of know where you're at and where you need to be. And so when rates hit a certain point, you'll be like, all right, that's where I'm good.
A buyer needs to be prepared today. And if you take the time to understand all of your options from a financing perspective, then if the market is coming your way or you're prepared to purchase a home, even if that home might have felt like it's a little bit out of reach, if that seller is more motivated because the time that they've been listing the home or the time that the home's been available on the market is longer than what they were expecting, they might accept your offer. That might be a little low. You look back prior years and even months when it was a feeding frenzy, if you will, where there are multiple offers, the buyer is at a great disadvantage. They're going to have to spend more than they were prepared for, right, and not get the house they want. But either way, in either situation, it's all about your financing. It's about what you can afford, and you need to know exactly what you qualify for so that you can be prepared to be very aggressive in the offer.
I have a client who just closed on a house, and we submitted multiple offers on multiple houses at the same time. That was the strategy she wanted to use. And when both offers got accepted for the aggressive offers we submitted, she didn't take either one of them.
Yeah.
Because she was like, oh, was I not low enough?
Yeah.
And
it's an interesting perspective.
It's interesting, right? So she didn't. And it's fine. We actually submitted probably 4 or 5 offers before she finally took one. But it kept coming down to, we kept getting the offers accepted too.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden she felt like she wasn't going low enough. After a couple months of hunting, we've got her a house. But the market is changing. You're not seeing as much of that situation now.
Yeah.
So now we're looking at the active listings versus your under contract year over year.
Yeah, February is the purple line. And it shows 5,034 and February of 22. So, February of 23 is the purple line.
Right.
February of 22 is the red line.
So these are the homes that are under contract right now. It kind of shows you we're about 2,400 different on that. We're looking at the peak of the market, right? This is the same slide we showed you 2 weeks ago. We're probably going to show you this slide a lot.
Yeah, sure.
Because this shows you the peak. This is where we were at the peak back in May of 2022. And once again, you got 4,000 homes sold, and that's all homes, remember, townhomes included. So your single family is actually 3,017. 6 days on market, you're at $244 per square foot, and we're hitting almost $600,000 on the median sold price. These are numbers from the beginning of January, so in the last 45 days, and this is single family homes. And you've got a median sold price of $510,000, which means we're down about $90,000 on single family homes.
Yeah, versus this median sold price of $598,000.
Right, and that's a significant difference.
Yeah.
If you go to February, it's at $520, but once again, we're looking at kind of half the data, and obviously there's going to be some sort of just natural fluctuation on what types of homes are sold. So I feel comfortable saying in the last 45 days we're at $510,000. That's a significant drop, and you're down to $210 per square foot when before you're at $244. So. Yeah. Right, so that, once again, you're down $33 per square foot.
That's a lot of data. There's a lot of information. I think, if any regular person would look at this, there's opportunity. If the inventory is increasing or we start to address that issue and prices are being normalized, then you're going to be able to afford a home. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And if there's a reduction in sale price and it's close to $90,000 on average, it's kind of what Ty is saying, then that's a big number. I mean, that's the equivalent of $500 and some change per month, $500 plus per month for most consumers. That's a lot. That's a big deal.
And a lot of people are saying, oh, prices, I want to buy at the bottom. I want to hit it when prices drop to the lowest. And yeah, we probably have another month or two, maybe even 3 of prices coming down, but we're slowing down, and it's going to slow down. And the problem is with timing the market is if you miss, all of a sudden you find yourself trying to catch up, and now you're submitting offers and multiple offers, and it will change at some point. And to be ahead of the market, you're gonna have to buy before it hits the bottom, because once it hits the bottom, you're on the rebound.
It's nearly impossible to get to the true bottom.
Right.
Like, you'd have to be in a really lucky spot. That's the truth.
I mean, and right now we're able to negotiate closing costs, rate buy downs, and all that stuff. So even if home prices drop another $10,000 or $15,000, we're already negotiating that right now with sellers, right now.
Yeah.
So there's really no reason to wait. And I really talk to a lender, get pre-qualified, so you know where you stand. And we're able to look at houses that are above your approval, counting on getting a rate buy down or closing costs paid, or both in some situations.
Absorption rate is not something you will ever consider. Like in your head, you're never going to think about, oh, when should I buy? What's the absorption rate? Okay, but for us in the industry, we look at how long inventory is sitting. Okay, and that tells us how interested buyers are in inventory or interested in the home. So the last 2 months, the inventory has increased. We now have 5.44 months. Okay, so what that means to you is that, if all the listings were sold, if you will, these houses sell within that 5-month period across the whole market. Over a 12-month period is significantly up. So that gets back to this whole thing that I always talk about, which is inventory. We need to cure our inventory issues. We need more available homes so that people have something to choose from and they get the home that they want, and we're starting to see that. So that absorption rate at 5.44 months, totally a realistic number. I don't think we should be concerned about that, meaning that there's too much inventory.
I saw another local YouTuber doing a video on the home builder crisis.
Yeah, sure.
All the extra inventory that they have.
Nope.
And we can say this, end of December and January, early January, builders were panicking a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
They did have to offload some homes.
Right.
We know that. But Jeff, I mean, we both work with builders a ton.
Yeah.
What would you say? You talk to them all the time. I do too. Yeah. Are home builders feeling desperate? Or
absolutely not.
They're not.
Yeah, absolutely
they're not in trouble.
Not. Yep. I think, a lot of consumers think that the builder will go through a crash and that they'll just fire sell homes. And, they're thinking about the Great Recession. They're thinking about 2008 and 9 and 10, and we are just in a completely different economic cycle, okay? Most of what caused 2008, 2009, 2010, and really the years prior, 2006 and 7, was a lot of speculation building and people even buying homes to be investors when they had no business being investors. They didn't really understand what to do, and it was the glory days where you just bought a home and it automatically appreciated 20%. So builders back then were building like crazy, okay? But now they've been very conservative. They have extremely good financing, meaning that the banks that they work with to build these homes have very agreeable terms, and none of the builders that I work with or that I even know of have overextended themselves. They all can weather the storm a lot longer than I believe our buyer can weather not being in a house. The end of the day, the builder's going to maintain that price. And I think that's a healthy thing. We need valuations to stay consistent in the States so that when you do buy a home, you're not buying a home and then all of a sudden it's worth 10% out of the gate. When you buy, that ultimately over a long run, it's gonna appreciate no matter what, but there's a lot less of that volatility.
Also, to add to 2008, the builders had overbuilt, but on top of that, we had mass foreclosures.
Yeah, true.
Right?
True.
So no one was buying any homes in 2008. It was a disaster. The other thing I want to say is that right now, I mean, builders aren't panicking, but they're still offering great incentives. I know multiple builders right now that are offering great deals.
Yeah.
And so it's still a great time to go out and negotiate a great deal with a home builder. And that's something I love to guide you through. I know which builders are offering and which builders are pretty much like, nope, we're good where we're at.
Yeah.
We're not changing. Our prices are good. They're offering kind of that standard like preferred lender incentive. It's a great time, I think, to get out there and talk with the builders. So Jeff, talk about rates, what we've seen.
Yeah, I was just going to pull up a little bit of data that we could look at without nerding out and making everybody feel like it's time to take a nap. 2 weeks ago, rates were quite a bit lower. We had a significant increase in interest rates over the last week or so. In fact, right now, 30-year fix is averaging right around 6.75% across the country. There are lenders that are offering lower rates than that. And obviously you have, as a buyer, you have the ability to buy down the rate lower. Even 15-year fixed, which has kind of been the staple low rate, has been now increasing up to almost 6%, 5.94. Why did interest rates go up? It has nothing to do with the Fed. We talked about that a little bit. So Jerome Powell raised the federal funds rate, or what we call prime, right, in February, and they're really trying to ensure that their monetary policy is tightening the market, meaning that money is not as liquid as it was the prior years. That's ultimately what's caused this big inflationary cycle. The basic laws of economics, right? Supply and demand. If people want something and they want it really bad, that demand is high, then they're going to pay for it. But if the supply is low, they'll pay more to try to win, right? We saw it in the real estate market. We see it in the car market, just across the board. Okay, so that's what inflation is. We're paying more. Now, add on top of that, all the issues that stemmed from the pandemic and shutting the world down, created a global inflationary cycle. But what the Fed is trying to do with raising rates is to stop inflation. That has nothing to do with mortgage rates, kind of, okay? Meaning when the Fed raises, we saw interest rates drop. Right? We talked about that. It's just like, how can that be? And, sometimes it isn't like that. So right now, if you look at it with rates moving up, the reason why is simply because we had some strong economic data that was released. What that means is that the Fed will probably get more aggressive on tightening, and they'll continue to raise rates. And it's that kind of mindset that starts to worry the mortgage market. And in truth, the mortgage market has been playing this game of chicken with the Fed. They're trying to guess how long this cycle is going to go. How long will the Fed tighten up the economy? And they lost. At the end of the day, they thought, there's no way the Fed is going to continue to raise rates even this year and keep them high. Okay, the Fed has kind of said, we're going to keep them high for a longer period of time, maybe 2 years, okay? So well into 2024, the mortgage market's saying, no way, no way. And sure enough, they lower rates, and what happens? We see a strong uptick in application volume, and we talked about this 2 weeks ago. We see people, competing and trying to buy homes in multiple bidding wars, that kind of thing. It's like the light switch is back on. That's not what we need in the economy. So now, the mortgage-backed securities world, they're fearing that they made the wrong call, and they're starting to crank those rates up because strong economic data means additional Fed tightening, okay? So the reports that came out, the CPI, okay, I'll just use that term. It's a consumer price index. It is like a general gauge for inflation, and it was just released 2 days ago, and it was forecasted at 5.5. But the actual report came out at 5.6, meaning the prior months before that, inflation was dropping, it was lowering, reason that mortgage rates started to drop as well. But this data shows we're still spending money. As consumers, we're buying stuff, and that is why mortgage rates went up. If the inflation data is still a concern, and the Fed could get more aggressive and tighten up more, and they could tighten up outside of their federal funds rate, okay? So that's why mortgage rates moved, okay? It's going to be a really, really volatile year, up and down, up and down. So the most important thing that you need to know as a buyer in this kind of environment is you have to be pre-approved and you have to be ready to go. Right. And when you find the house that you want, you got to buy it. You go. You don't wait, okay? You can always refinance in the future and get a lower rate if rates drop. But if you wait and you think you're going to time it, you're going to see these big fluctuations here. In this case, well over 0.5% in less than 2 weeks. That's too much fluctuation for the average consumer. So the other couple things that I think were concerning that are kind of spiking interest rates is we actually got the data that shows that mortgage delinquencies at the end of 2022 increased slightly, okay? That means that some of our fellow Americans are experiencing financial hardships, maybe some job losses, and they're not making their mortgage payments. Okay, so that makes a bank or a mortgage lender fear, and they start to curb their volume, if you will, with rising interest rates. Okay, a lot of people think it's about profit or revenue. It's absolutely not the case. The way a mortgage lender makes money is completely different. But the last thing that I would say that I think is like kind of case in point why our interest rates are moving back up, and it's really, again, has nothing to do with the Fed. It's all about inflation data. It's all about what we are doing as consumers, is that in December, the CoreLogic report that was released about housing and the valuation of housing year over year. So December 22 versus December 21, an increase of 6.9%. Okay, so we're all talking about appreciation and decreasing in values, right. But year over year, over the whole country, there was still 7% appreciation. That is too much. And at the end of the day, the Fed's going to do everything they can to make sure that we put a lid on this appreciation to continue to make houses affordable. Now, right. Locally, it's a little different, okay? And Ty's been talking about that. But nationally, that's still a concern. And hence, interest rates went up. So it's going to be a crazy year. And I think at the end of the day, there's still huge opportunity to buy homes. And we still have affordable homes. When you see median price at $510,000, that's a breath of fresh air considering where it was at the end of 2021, $90,000 higher than that, easy. So, that's my 2 cents on what's happening with interest rates. Well, so they're up, but not to do with the Fed. It's to do with all of us consumers spending money and buying stuff.
You and I talk about all the time how the Fed should have had rates. They took rates to the lowest point ever in the hottest housing market we've ever seen. They just missed the window.
Yep.
Right? At that point, they should have been bringing rates up to kind of slow things down at that point, and then they had to slam on the brakes. So the mortgage industry right now, it's a little pop in rates. They're just tapping the brakes.
Yes.
Like, hey, we can't get out of control here because they don't have to slam on the brakes. We know things are recovering.
Yes.
We're going to be okay. There's no reason to panic. So basically right now at this time, if you're looking to buy or sell a house, these are kind of things that you can expect. We kind of talked about these in the numbers, but it's taking about 1.5 to 2 months for a house to sell. So at that point, generally people are saying at the 45-day mark, I need to lower the price of my house. It's not selling. I also want to be careful when we say housing market crash.
Absolutely.
$90,000 in 8 months sounds like a crash, right?
Yeah,
you can use the word crash or whatever you want to, but it's not a crash because when you look at year over year numbers, we're talking about percentages. It's not 25% year over year, right? So people who bought a house a year ago, year and a half ago, they're doing just fine. Matter of fact, a year and a half ago, they're probably still up, most people. So we're kind of about where houses should have been had we had normal appreciation.
Right.
And so that's why I strongly believe right now is a great time to jump into the market. Start looking for those deals. If you want to be like my client, submit multiple offers till you find someone who's ready to play ball or willing to play ball. My brother and I didn't know anything. I didn't have a real estate license. I didn't know anything about real estate. We wanted to buy an investment property. We went out and we were telling my dad, and I was like, one of my friends sells real estate. And I was like, oh, cool. We found a house that we loved, great investment opportunity. We're like, oh man, we're going to kill it. We said to our agent, should we submit a lowball offer or what? And his question should have been, how bad do you want the house?
Right.
But he said, oh yeah, just submit whatever you want. The seller will counter back and we'll figure it out. Well, the seller was so offended by our offer, he would not negotiate with us. We could have lived in the house and had 6 renters. It was on the golf course by the University of Utah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I mean, that house is worth well over $1 million today, and we were probably in the $200,000 range.
Yeah.
Like, massive mistake. You find a house that you love, just go get it. Submit a good offer and go get the house. Because they're out there right now, but you can also go out and get a deal right now if you're looking for a deal.
At the end of the day, I still feel we're kind of at the peak as far as interest rates. We're going to fluctuate 0.5%. There's going to be some volatility. But mortgage rates, really dictate affordability. And until there is another crazy inventory issue that drives interest rates one way or the other, I would expect the status quo. Either way, the difference of 0.5% in most cases is not a make or break for most people. They can afford the house regardless of whether rates have moved 0.5% or not. It's just about buying the house, getting into the home, owning the home, and we can always refinance down the road.
Jeff, thank you. I appreciate your time. If you guys have real estate related questions, feel free to reach out to me. If you want to get approved for a loan or see how much you can afford, you're going to reach out to Jeff. I'm going to put both our phone numbers in the description below. You're also welcome to leave a comment if there's something you want us to talk about in the future.
Yeah.
Leave a comment down there. If you have questions, you can leave your comment down there as well. If you found this information helpful, please give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, and we'll catch you next time.